Tottenham move in for another Serie A star. Manchester United have made the absolutely hilarious decision to stick with the manager who has brought them no apparent style of play. And Chelsea have bid £50 million for an Aston Villa wonderkid. All this and more on today's daily Premier League transfer news with me, Barnaby Slater. Guys, thank you so much for watching and for all your support. Please do give the video a like and press subscribe if you haven't already for daily transfer news and more wide-ranging news into your inbox. Also, you can listen as an audio podcast, and if you want to be a member, only £1 a month to be a pro member or Patreon member. All the details in the description box below. Really helps me to make that daily content for you. But let's get on with it, and starting as always with Tottenham Hotspur. Fabio Paratici, Spurs' transfer consultant slash criminal. I'm not even sure if he's allowed officially to be working in football, but Daniel Levy definitely still has him doing some of his transfer dirty work. He is well known for working on multiple deals at the same time, and he is reportedly leading talks behind the scenes for 4 new signings for Tottenham Hotspur this summer, and is pushing the board to put more investment into the squad. One of these rumours is Roma's former Chelsea number 9, Tammy Abraham. It's also said that Roma are looking for this amount of money for him, €30 million. What do you think? Is Tammy Abraham worth €30 million? I know he's done pretty well in Serie A since he went out there, and I'll be honest, he's actually surprised me with how well he's done. I didn't expect it. He's obviously a talent. He's a good player. He's a decent finisher. But when he was in the Premier League, for me, Tammy Abraham wasn't quite at that top level. And I personally am not sure he would be an improvement on Richarlison. So I wouldn't personally go for him, but let me know in the comments what you think. Do you think Fabio Paratici should be pushing for a move for Tammy Abraham? West Ham, under their new manager Julian Lopetegui, also rumoured to be interested in him. I don't know. For me, I would be sticking with Richarlison over Tammy Abraham. Obviously, we've spoken quite a lot already this summer. If there was a bid that was a bid for Richarlison that was too difficult to turn down, by which I mean maybe if Saudi Arabia came and offered us what we paid or a bit more, then sure, maybe you would then look at another 9 to replace him, and Tammy Abraham, I guess, could be in the mix. But for me, there's a reason why Abraham has never really been picked for England. He's not really got the all-round game, for me, to do it in the Premier League on a regular basis. But as I said, let me know in the comments what you think of Abraham. Meanwhile, there's another wide forward / number 9 interesting Spurs, and it's Albert Gudmundsson from Genoa. He can play centrally or out wide, which, as we know, Big Ange Postecoglou looking for that adaptability, looking for players like Sonny, like Richarlison, like Brennan Johnson, who can play left, right, or centrally, and Gudmundsson can do that. And of course, Spurs do have good links with Genoa. If you think about the Jed Spence move, for instance. This is all according to Alistair Gold, who obviously has really great contacts and insight from behind the scenes at Spurs. So let me tell you a bit more about Gudmundsson. Icelandic international, 26 years old now. He scored 10 goals in 36 games for his country, which for me is pretty good, because obviously Iceland, despite the fact they beat England yet again last week, not one of the great footballing nations. He can play as a second striker. He's also comfortable out wide. If you watch him, lots of clips of him in tight little areas out wide, using trickery and skillfulness and a drop of the shoulder to make some space for himself. Quick feet. He likes to cut in from the left and has a great right foot. Good strike on him. Also a good set piece taker. And also lots of examples of him improvising when things are a little bit difficult or the ball's a bit high or he's got to get it down. Very good tight control and a good improviser. Lovely vision, good touch, and decent crosser as well. So I can totally see why Johan Lang, the head of recruitment, and Ange Postecoglou see him as a player who should be on the list. And Paratici, you would imagine, will be doing all of those talks with Genoa for the Spence deal, and maybe Gudmundsson could come in as part of that deal as well. Keep an eye on that one. I think we've been in for him a little bit since January, actually. He's been on the list for a while, and he does look like a strong player. Also, he's quite tall, which might help us in defensive set-piece situations, which, of course, we have not been great at. Other news coming out of Spurs, Emerson has 2 years left on his contract, and that is why Tottenham are so keen to get an important amount of money for him. That's according to Fabrizio Romano, who is actually talking a lot about this deal. He seems to have a real in the camp on this one. Tottenham apparently looking for €20 million still, but Milan, who are the team who are most in for Emerson Royal, they want to pay a bit less. And frankly, I'm not surprised. I don't think Emerson Royal is worth 20 million euros. He might be worth 20 million euros to Milan because he could do a really good job defensively in Serie A. But for me, I think anything we can get around £10 million, 10 to 15 million pounds, you take that one. I spoke earlier in the week about us being interested in Stuttgart's Chris Furyk. Well, apparently, according to Alistair Gold, Spurs now trying to distance themselves from that report. Now, I don't know whether that means we're genuinely not interested in the player, or maybe they feel like it's a move that we like and it's been leaked, and they don't like that because it might encourage other clubs to come in and make it more of a bidding war. So maybe they trying to distance themselves from it publicly so that then they can do their dealings behind the scenes. Certainly, since Johan Langer's come in as recruitment chief, it's a lot more at Spurs. In terms of transfer dealings, it's a lot quieter, a lot fewer leaks, and things get done kind of more on the secret, on the down low. That Timo Werner deal back in January, a perfect example of that. Nobody had any thoughts of that happening whatsoever. And then it just came out of the blue. So who knows? I don't think the Chris Furyk thing is totally dead, but Alistair Gold says Spurs trying to distance themselves from it. Some international news. Sonny and South Korea, they won 1-0 against China in Seoul this week, and Troy Parrott played 53 minutes for Ireland in a kind of chastening loss 3-0 to Portugal. He was actually brought off soon into the second half, which is a shame after he scored that winner in their previous game. And 2 in 2 games for Dane Scarlett playing for the England elite squad this summer. They got a 2-2 draw against the Republic of Ireland. Moving on to other transfer news. In fact, before I get on to the transfer news, I'm going to talk about Erik ten Hag. He has been announced just last night that it has been announced, that he will be staying at Manchester United. Ineos have done this kind of big, they've been scouring the planet for potential other managers to replace Erik ten Hag. They've spoken to everyone, seemingly. Every young coach, De Zerbi, Pochettino, you name it, they've spoken to them. Tuchel, of course. And many more, and they've come round to the fact that they're going to stick with Erik ten Hag. And not only that, but because Erik ten Hag only has 1 year left on his contract, they are now having to be in contract talks with him because, of course, as Spurs fans know, what with Antonio Conte, when you get into the last year of a manager's contract, if you do not increase that, then all the press reports will be in every single press conference and interview. Are you going to stay? Are the club going to renew? So, Ineos and Jim Ratcliffe, having basically tried, as far as I'm concerned, to replace Ten Hag, something that doesn't really surprise me because he's given them no style of play whatsoever. They have now decided, maybe because they couldn't get the man that they wanted, that they have to stick with him and give him a new contract. And I have to say, I think it's absolutely laughable. I really do. I cannot see how this is going to work out for Ten Hag unless they have an incredible start to the season. And I mean incredible, by which I mean top of the league and playing unbelievable football. Unless he somehow pulls out the style of play that he had at Ajax from nowhere, with a squad containing the likes of McTominay and Wan-Bissaka. I mean, they've got some good young players, of course they do, but they're going to need a huge overhaul, and I'm just not sure if that can all happen in time to save Ten Hag. So they're going to give him another maybe 2-year contract to appease him and to keep the press off his back. But he is going to have to really go in there from the top this summer and next pre-season and just start so well. And of course, the Jadon Sancho thing is still hanging over his head. They're going to have to sell him. Mason Greenwood will be out the door. That's not Ten Hag's fault, of course. But I think the Sancho thing is a good example. Sure, he played some late night video games, but some players need to have an arm around their shoulder rather than offered the stick all the time. And Sancho is a perfect example of that. They had a huge outlay on Sancho, £75 million, and he's clearly a really talented player, but you've got to give him the conditions in which he can make the most of that talent. And I think Erik ten Hag has proven himself to be just too stubborn, refusing to understand that different players need different levels of man management, and I just personally cannot see how that's going to work well for Man United. And as a Spurs fan, I'm delighted about it. I think if they'd taken the leap, got rid of Ten Hag, even though he won the FA Cup, and got in Mauricio Pochettino, I think that would have been more likely to give them a chance over the next few seasons to really grow and maybe even get themselves in a position when Pep Guardiola leaves Man City maybe in a year's time to start challenging again. But with Ten Hag, I think they're kicking the can down the road. I think they will end up having to fire Ten Hag maybe during this season or at the end of the season, and then they'll have to start again again, which they could be doing right now. And the fact that Ineos have come in, they have 25% stake now. They've come into the club. They had a real opportunity to say, sorry, you're not our man. We appreciate the work you've done. We're going to bring in our man. But they seem to have kind of bottled it, not got the one they wanted. They've kind of, flip-flap from one type of manager to another during this kind of, I don't know what they've called it, like this investigation into the football affairs. And settled on just keeping Ten Hag. Let me know in the comments what you think. I know a lot of Spurs fans watching my videos. Let me know, as a Spurs fan, do you think it's good for Tottenham that Erik Ten Hag is staying at Manchester United? And if so, why? And we'll have a little chat in the comments about it. Okay, on to the other general Premier League transfer news and news from further afield. Joshua Zirkzee staying at Old Trafford, one of Manchester United's primary transfer targets this summer, and they've made their interest clear in the Bologna striker. He has a £34 million release clause in his contract. A lot of clubs in for Zirkzee, very big talent. This is all according to Sky Sports chef, who obviously you see him on Sky Sports News. United also drawn up a list of other attacking options, including Ivan Toney from Brentford, who of course Spurs have been sniffing around. No, Tottenham want to try and get him for around £40 million potentially if that opening comes up in the number 9 slot. But Man United also in for him, as well as Canadian forward Jonathan David. Very highly regarded. Those rumours according to ESPN. As I mentioned at the top, Chelsea, they just will not go away with their bids for players left, right and centre. Clearlake and Todd Bowley have the piss taken out of them all the time for the amount of money they've spent on young players, the length of the contracts they give these players, but they will not back down. You've got to give it to them in one way. They have their strategy. They're sticking to it in terms of player buying anyway. They want young players. It's like playing Football Manager. You've put on your little filter search, only players under 23, and they're looking for the best ones, and they're looking to sign them up for as long as possible. They're now going for John Duran from Aston Villa. This is a big one that's come out yesterday, and I'm going to bid £50 million for him. Some reports also that it might be a deal that incorporates Conor Gallagher, although all the talk is that Conor Gallagher does not want to leave London, and he's willing to let his contract run down rather than go to Aston Villa. Apparently Villa want £35 to £40 million up front, which makes sense because, of course, they need to potentially sell some players before June the 30th and that profit and sustainability rules deadline. Some reports saying, though, a €50 million fee is almost agreed between Chelsea and Aston Villa for John Duran. Matt Law is one of the people really giving good exclusives on that one. Also, apparently on Chelsea's list, though, for number 9s, Dominic Solanke, who was actually an academy graduate at Chelsea back in the day, and they may be willing to pay his £65 million release clause or somewhere there or thereabouts. Another example of Chelsea's just kind of mismanagement down the years if they were to get Dominic Solanke. I think that one is a little bit far-fetched, though. I can't see them spending that much on him. They prefer to buy younger players from abroad, I'm sure. Okay, over to Liverpool now. Luis Diaz, who, of course, Tottenham very nearly bought a few years ago. In fact, I'm interested to know from you guys, that Luis Diaz deal that nearly went through, that Paratici nearly got, but Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool gazumped us right at the end, and in that transfer window, we ended up getting Deki Kulusevski and Rodrigo Bentancur. In hindsight, do you wish we got Luis Diaz, or are you glad that we ended up missing out on Luis Diaz and getting Deki and Rodrigo Bentancur? Let me know. But anyway, Luis Diaz, despite rumours linking him with a move to Saudi Arabia this summer, he has said, I'm very happy at Liverpool. It's a great team and club. I've always wanted to play there, so I'm very happy and relaxed. I'm not thinking about anything else. So Luis Diaz looking to stay. I think things at Liverpool are going to be very, very interesting this year. A lot of talk coming out of some of the players. I've seen some interviews where they've said they were very surprised that Jurgen Klopp said he was going to resign. Some of those players have only ever played under Jurgen Klopp, for instance, Trent Alexander-Arnold. And I don't know, maybe you could foresee some kind of, I don't know, like let's see what this new coach has got to offer. Maybe a little bit of like, you've got to prove to us that you're going to be as good as Jurgen Klopp. That's something that a lot of those legacy teams have really struggled with when their big managers have left. Sir Alex Ferguson, etc., after kind of Kenny Dalglish back in the 80s for Liverpool too. So let's see what happens at Liverpool. Over to Newcastle. Miguel Almiron's future remains open ahead of this transfer window, which opens in a few days, by the way. There was, of course, a Saudi Pro League move for him in January, which collapsed at the last minute. That was an example of the Saudis trying to buy a player from the Saudis. Another problem with being state-owned, of course. But more clubs are showing interest in Almiron this summer, and Newcastle, because of their need to sell for profit and sustainability rules reasons, are open to selling him as long as a good proposal comes in. Fabrizio Romano is on that one. Newcastle are also only apparently one step away from signing James Trafford, the Burnley goalkeeper, for €20 million. Man City will receive 20% of that deal because James Trafford was formerly a Manchester City Academy graduate. He will sign a contract till 2029 at Newcastle. It's a lot of money, €20 million for a backup goalkeeper, but it just shows where the Premier League is going, because last season Newcastle really suffered when Nick Pope was injured, and so they're not going to make that mistake again. Now, this is something where, with my Spurs hat on, I have to say Tottenham are going to have to invest in another goalkeeper. I really don't think that Alfie Whiteman and Fraser Forster are going to be good enough backups if Vicario gets injured this season. I know they've just signed up Whiteman to a 5-year deal, and that kind of suggests maybe they think he's good enough to be a backup, but he's never played a senior game in this country. That is not a risk we can take in the Premier League. Okay, over to Aston Villa. Atletico Madrid are advancing in talks with Real Sociedad for Robin Lenormand, apparently. This is according to Fabrizio Romano as well. 100% agreement on personal terms. Over to West Ham. Luis Guilherme from Palmeiras. This is the deal that has been on and off and on and off, but it is back on again. It's happening. He's in the country. He's had his medical. And this is the deal. €23 million plus €7 million in add-ons and a 20% sell-on clause to Palmeiras. So Palmeiras is doing very well for that. The deal has been sealed. Contract till 2029. West Ham, interestingly, since they've got Lopetegui and definitely trying to corner that South American market, trying to get a little bit more vision, style and panache into the team. And that is, of course, something that the Hammers fans have wanted. They've had a lot of success under David Moyes. I nearly called him David Moyes. That would be the French David Moyes. They had a lot of success under him. Obviously won their first European trophy. They were challenging for Champions League places at various times, but they've played in a very one-dimensional, defensive, stodgy, counter-attack manner, and the West Ham fans haven't liked it. So now Lopetegui is bringing in players with a bit more style and flair to play alongside some of the good players they do have with that, of course, Paquetá, Jared Boehm and Kudus, for instance. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with them. They're also apparently interested in Nottingham Forest striker Awoniyi. Several clubs admire him. He's 26 years old. And of course, Nottingham Forest, also one of those clubs who have to sell this June. Ademola Lookman, the ex-Premier League player, played at Everton, played at Charlton, and then went over to Atalanta and scored I think a hat-trick in that Europa League final. He's 26 now, and he is looking to go to a top club. Atalanta looking for €25 million to €30 million. A transfer is possible, but only if a club that he's happy to go to come in. So I get it. You do really well in a Europa League final and your stock is high, but I cannot see one of the top 6 in England going for Lookman. He just hasn't had a good enough Premier League record so far for that. Arsenal apparently ready to cut their losses on Kieran Tierney this summer and are willing to accept £10 million for him. That's according to the Metro. Incoming Juventus manager Thiago Motta, he's signed up there, has made apparently a specific request for the club to sign Jakub Kiwior from Arsenal. Arsenal want at least €20 million to sanction a sale, which Juve think is too much. Well, Kiwior hasn't really played that much there, has he? So $20 million does seem like a lot, but Juve think Arsenal will end up lowering their demands. Okay, away from transfers, there's been some more kind of legal stuff going on in the Premier League over the last day or two. Aston Villa's chairman has now called for an overhaul of the Premier League spending rules, by which he means financial fair play and profit and sustainability rules. He said the following: the rules have actually resulted in cementing the status quo more than creating upward mobility and fluidity in the sport. They do not make sense and are not good for football. Look, there's a lot of this going on, a lot of talk about this on Twitter at the moment. The clubs who have money and have made it into the Champions League for the last few years, Aston Villa and Newcastle particularly, their fans are like, well, why can't we spend what we want? All I would say is the rules are very clear. You have to grow as a club so that if you then spend, it is sustainable to what you are earning. So if Newcastle want to earn more money, not only do they have to do what they are already doing, which is cheating big sponsorship deals like their Salah sponsorship on the front of their shirt, which is a Saudi Arabian company, so clearly that money is actually coming from the Saudi Arabian government, just like Man City do with Etihad. But they also have to try and do it legally by growing their stadium, selling more shirts around the world, being successful, being a regular Champions League club. That's what Tottenham have had to do over the last 10 or 15 years. Grow the stadium, get more revenue in, improve the training ground so that you can attract better players and therefore get more fans because you're playing better football, sell more shirts. It's pretty simple. The rules were brought in a long time ago. They all signed up to them, so do not complain about it now, Aston Villa. Well done. You're doing really well. You've got a good manager who's got you into the Champions League. But if you want to spend more money on players, grow Villa Park, change it, make it bigger. I don't know. It's pretty simple, and you have to do it over a period of time. A lot of people, let me know what you think in the comments about this. A lot of people complain about Man United and Arsenal and Liverpool, how it's all financial fair play is all built to kind of protect them. They have built up their clubs over decades and generations of success. And now other clubs have to do the same. Believe it or not, these rules have been brought in for a good reason, which is to stop clubs, like Portsmouth did, for instance, spending money they didn't have to try and get to the top, and then basically having to be saved by administrators and get relegation after relegation and nearly going out of business. There is method behind the madness, but Villa now apparently ready to be the next club after Man City to sue the Premier League. They are apparently considering legal action over these profit and sustainability rules. So let's see what happens. At Nottingham Forest, apparently they have to raise £20 million in transfer fees before June the 30th to comply with the profit and sustainability rules. They're apparently confident of reaching that figure by selling a number of fringe players. Finally, the Euros coming up in the next few days. England's game Sunday. First game is on Sunday. Gareth Southgate has said it is very likely that unless England win the European Championships, it is very unlikely he will continue as England manager. I have to say I was very confident over the last few months. I was very confident that I thought England would win these Euros. But having seen the squad, I just do not think we have what it takes defensively to keep enough clean sheets to win it. And I saw an article in The Guardian yesterday suggesting the best way for England, I think it was Karen Carney actually, the best way for England to win it would just to go all-out attack. And we do have a lot of attacking talent, but also, do you remember that Hungary game where we lost 4-0 at home? It's only about 18 months ago. I'm not sure. I know Gareth is seen as a bit too pragmatic a manager, but we need to find that balance and get the ball into the forward players, absolutely. But also, we need to have a lot of protection in defensive midfield because our centre-backs, I'm not sure Gay, he's not played enough football this season to be right, at the top of his game. And therefore, John Stones is going to need a lot of protection. And also, I'm just very uncomfortable with Kieran Trippier playing left-back. I do not like the way that every time the ball comes to him, he has to cut inside because he's not confident enough on his left foot. I get that Luke Shaw is becoming fitter and is maybe going to be available for the second or third group game. And that's good, but I don't trust Luke Shaw to be able to play kind of 4 or 5 games in this tournament. So I just think there are too many holes. But let me know if you're an England fan what you think we'll do in the Euros this summer. Let me know in the comments below and we'll have a little chat about it. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Do press the like if you haven't already. Do subscribe if you want daily transfer news and more general news coming into your inbox. And please do help support the channel. Only £1 a month. All the details of how to become a member in the description box below. Thanks so much for watching and have a great day. Cheers.